In this episode of the Construction Dorks, we sit down with Hanna Thomazin of US Engineering to talk about her first time on the main stage at MEP Innovation, her work in data analytics, and how US Engineering is building an exceptional and inclusive company culture. It was a great conversation, so sit back and enjoy the episode.
And we're live. This one we're going to call It Is Her First Rodeo with Hanna Thomazin. Hanna, how are you? Welcome to the show. Thanks for sitting down with us today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm doing really well. It's been a super good week so far.
Awesome. Well, we're actually, if you guys can't tell, this is a little bit new for us. We're on location again at what has to be the event of the year for innovators in our circle, MEP Innovation. We're down here in Orlando, Florida. We're at the Signia Hilton enjoying ourselves. It's day 2 or 27. I don't know.
Which day
is
at least
it?
day 3. What do you think? Like day 3 or 4?
It feels that.
Yes.
Is it day 3?
I think it's
No,
day
it's day
20.
two.
It's day 2.
Yeah, it's day 2. I had to take a nap earlier, so.
I'll tell you, it's day 27 as far as I'm concerned. Been an awesome week though. So,
Yes.
and you know, this is your third, I hear, right?
Yeah, this is my third time coming. Last year, well, the first year I attended, I just attended as just a regular attendee, and then last year I attended and did a presentation over something similar to what I talked about today, which was around data. So last year the presentation was around how I use data at US Engineering, how the project managers receive that data, and then from the VC perspective of that. And then this year I got to talk about a problem that I solved for the company too. So that was really cool. Using data also.
Yeah, and we're obviously going to get into that, but my question for you, and this is a question I like to ask, tell me about how it feels mentally when you're just attending a conference where rather than you have to present at one, right?
Yeah.
How does it feel for you coming in? Do you get some people get more excited when they know they're going to present because they're amped up, and some are just like, hey, I'm just attending, I'm just in the crowd. So what's it like for you to come as an attendee, and then you've obviously presented the last 2 years?
Yeah. As an attendee, I always pick out all the sessions that I want to hit and make sure I'm pretty diligent about taking my notes, because I want to bring that back to the team and say, these are the things I learned, and this is what I think we can do better in, or this is what we're already doing, right? But as a speaker this year, I felt especially I only feel like I have the capacity to attend the general sessions, and also I'm picking one session to go visit and see, and then listen and learn. So yeah, a little bit different mindset.
And there's been some great sessions this year, right? Which is
Great stuff this year. So, and you graced us on the main stage this year. You didn't just present, Hanna. You were on the main stage. So, tell us a little bit about the main stage.
Yeah, that was awesome. I didn't realize how many people attended the conference, so that was really cool to be a part of that. But on the main stage presentation, I got up on during Sasha's over top reasons for project delays. So myself and Jeff Elwell, yes, talked about it from the contractor's perspective. So I provided some insights on what that looks like for us. And because I'm more of an individual contributor at my company instead of someone that's higher level, at the executive level, I think what's important for us is starting with the basics. So I talked about our daily log system.
Yeah. I mean, you have some good data off of that. And Jeff's one of those people also that is seeing okay, how can we leverage this downstream? And I think, I don't know if I was talking to you or if I was talking to him. Do you have, they put up some graphs of sort of the RFI process, the run up and then the run down. Do you think as we start to understand data, as we start to understand what that data is and make adjustments, that we're actually going to just, it's like when you look at something, you change the problem itself, we're going to react to it and then it's going to react back. Do you think that that's going to show in the data early, or do you think that's going to take a while to actually be seen? Because when I was talking to Jeff, he made a couple quick changes that showed up immediately in terms of us, really in terms of bulletins and RFIs, and saying, how do these two specific documents forecast for all of our work? And then he made some adjustments, and now they forecast differently than they did before.
Yeah, it's interesting to see I think everyone generally knows how their project, like how RFIs affect their project. Like we all know kind of anecdotally. So to see the data now and to hear like what story, or to see which story it tells us about it, or in Jeff's case, like this isn't exactly the story that I was anticipating. So let me change the parameters of how it, spits it back to me. That's really cool to be able to do.
How did you pick your parameters? Is it just whatever data I have available?
It's kind of whatever I have available, and then you kind of have an understanding of this is what I would expect, and if it's not that, then you go out and look for what can I change to make it better.
And it's easy for John to just jump into data-rich questions right away, like he's attracted to it. And you and I had a really good conversation last night. We met, and I would like to just back up for a second. I would like to know, obviously you got to where you are today, but how did this all start? I mean, like, tell us about Hanna. Like, where did this all come from? Like, what fueled this? And like, walk us through your resume, if you will. But like, start from the beginning and bring us to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. I have had a really short career, so it's
that's not what it's about.
But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. So I've been with US my whole career. It's been about 4 years.
Great.
I started off in our VC department, just kind of organizing data, and in that department I saw there were some inefficiencies that were happening, and they're pretty frustrating.
Anything you can shed light on, like anything that you remember maybe that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think double entry of things, if I'm a BIM person, I need to record whatever it is about the model in Excel, but then I also need to record it in Procore, but then also it needs to be in Smartsheets. Like having to enter data in 3 different spots is so aggravating, and it shouldn't be what we're doing. So I just noticed like things like that, where it's like, why are we doing it this way? Can we do it better? And so some other teams in the company at US Engineering noticed that, and they're like, hey, we actually would like it if you worked for us, and we have some other problems that I think you would help us with.
Be careful what you wish for type thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
She found an inefficiency and fixed it and created a role for inefficiency fixer.
Well, I mean, essentially that's what happened. So then project controls is what they snagged me from our VC department. So I worked on our project controls team for like 2.5, 3 years. And primarily focused on schedules and labor productivity and how are we tracking our labor using our models, what does that look like, those kind of things. And I'm still working on solving problems and inefficiencies, and so it makes more sense for me to do that at our strategic level. So now the strategy team has picked me out of project controls, and now I'm in our strategy team.
And so what does your role look like today? Like define your role and what you're doing on that strategy team.
Yeah, I think it would be best described as like a business analyst role, truly. Okay. I look at all of our data from whatever programs we're using, and then I pick out kind of the important parts of it, analyze it, recommend, this is what I'm seeing, and I think this is important, and how it relates to our strategic initiatives of, how can we have a better profit, or how can we improve safety, or things like that, and then more or less give it back in a report or a data analytic, and then that way our leadership can make decisions with that.
So you're sort of looking for the trends, looking to prep the data, and then get it to them so that, with probably some of your thoughts on what you're seeing, and then they can make kind of strategic, informed decisions on it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. So it would be good for me, 10 years down the line. I want to be the person that's able to make those decisions. Right now I'm just, here's my thoughts, and run with them if that's right, or whatever. So
it's got to be cool. I mean, like you said, it's a short career so far, but you're learning and obviously being picked out at places and moved around. So you're getting a really good, diverse look at the organization, which will help you in your career down the road be able to make some of those decisions. And I'm sure they're coming to you and saying, okay, Hanna, I kind of get this, but maybe there's something missing here that you didn't see, and then you go back and get it.
Yeah, for sure that happens. And it's cool too, I feel like I'm known as, hey, I don't exactly know what the solution to this is, but I know that you can figure it out for me, so here's the problem on my project, help me out. And I'm really good at that, and I enjoy doing it, so.
What got you into data?
So my background's in mechanical engineering.
Right on. Which school?
Benedictine College.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a really small school. Go Ravens.
Gotta give the shout out.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
Give the shout out. I played volleyball there.
Right on.
So it was super good experience. I would hesitantly recommend people to play a sport and do engineering in college. It was a lot for me. But
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a lot of. Maybe that's where your problem-solving efficiencies and time management really come
that's
from.
where it was born from.
Yeah. How did we now? How did data land in that? Yeah. Talk to us about how did that data part come out?
I honestly, it's a great question. I don't really know if I know the answer to it. What I enjoy is is organizing, I suppose, is like a generalization of what I really like to do. And data just made sense, and there was a need for it at US Engineering, and so I just went in and filled that need.
Do you use a lot of your engineering background at US Engineering?
I love this question.
That was a weirdly phrased question.
I love it. I do remember taking one class in college that was over specifically project engineering, and I was like, this is great. I'm using my engineering degree for this, with this class, and then I don't do project engineering anymore. So.
But it got you to where you are, right?
Yeah, because it is the value of an engineering degree, I think, is how you approach problems. And that's why I wanted to do engineering, is to be able to learn how to think critically and problem solve.
Yeah, they really do a great job of that. And I think it's really odd to see how many people come out of engineering and then end doing something that's adjacent. And data's still adjacent, but I think data will be, if you go back in 10 years, I would imagine it's going to be part of the curriculum, right? But, you had what, 2 talks this time, you were on the main stage, and all of them were data related. What are some other things in sort of the realm of construction outside of the data piece that you really were here to either see or talk about, or maybe even do a little bit of networking on?
Yeah, I love hearing about what's the next step for the industry. I think there's a ton of opportunity for young talent to come into the industry and make a difference. So I was curious to see, and I had a couple good conversations with people about what does that look like next? How are we recruiting diverse talent? We don't always want to, target schools are great, but also how can we get people from backgrounds that we're not as familiar with? Because diverse teams are able to solve problems in a better way than people that are all the same.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you were on stage with Elwell.
Mm-hmm.
Elwell will tell you, he likes graphic designers. He's like, I want to fill everything with graphic designers. And that's part of his culture, so he's pulling his culture into it. So, with your background and your culture, are you looking for people like you to bring into the organization, or what's your focus on that, on looking outside?
That's a good question too. I know our focus as an organization is how can we recruit not exactly from our target schools. We hire a lot, at least in the Kansas City office, from K-State. And I'm not a K-Stater. I've Benedictine College, right? So
Ravens.
It's how did I end up at US Engineering? And I had just applied through LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever, which is so crazy. I think the hit rate on getting a job that way is 2%.
It's pretty low.
Yeah, so it's how does that happen? So how can we bridge the gap of these people that are coming from non-target schools? They also need to have an equal opportunity to make it into the industry, too. So.
Yeah.
Do you feel like people from those non-target schools, or the people that you're trying to attract, do they even know about it? Do they know, I feel like some of them probably know about the industry and maybe are just unsure of how to get into it. But do you think that we're missing potential greatness out of people by obviously not attracting them how we should be with programs like the one you're working on? How does that, how do we fix that? How do we start to attract more people and the right people and open it up to everybody?
Yeah, I think part of it starts at college recruiting. So as an engineering student in college, I was heavily drinking the design Kool-Aid, right? It's you go to engineering school, then you go work for a design firm, you get your PE license, and that's what you do. But I didn't do that, and I didn't really want to do that. And so
Right.
I know a lot of people also feel the same way, but they feel like they have no other choice, because that's what you do when you get your degree in engineering. Or even construction science is a more clear path to this industry. But I think it's good for, it starts at the recruiting level. When you go to these career fairs, you have to be able to speak well about what your company offers and what it does, and these are our retention rates, and this is really cool, or this is someone that we have hired in the last 5 years, and this is the impact that they're making on the organization. So being able to walk into a company or hear about a company and they have young talent that's there that they can speak on resonates a lot with the younger generation, because it's important to know that people that look like you are also working for the places that you work at.
Yeah, and we're, I'll speak for myself, but and these two guys, we're a little bit older and we're tenured in this industry, and you've got 4 years in this industry, right? So you're kind of on the other side of the spectrum as us. We're on the back nine in the construction industry, but the things that attract us to construction and technology are maybe different from what attract you and your generation. So what are the clear identifiers that attract you, people like you, and people that are in your circle? What is important to you in working for a company? What are the things that hit you that say, okay, this is where I need to be at?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is a sense of belonging. Like if I think about when I go to work, I spend more time with my coworkers than I do my friends and family, and that's insane.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure that I feel like a sense of belonging for a company, right? So that's really important. The work-life balance, I think, is super emphasized in my generation, comparatively to the older generation. Like
You could say us.
Yeah. So like those things are really, really important. But I think what's exciting about construction and why I've chosen to stick around is because, like, if I were to go work in tech, all of the great things have already kind of been done, right? And there's a huge potential of opportunity in construction that things still need to happen here, and I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and definitely I would say the fact that construction went a little slow with tech adoption opens it up to younger people coming in that are really fluent in technology. But the belonging thing, I wanted to go back to that because Christina talks about that a lot.
I was going to go right there.
Literally, we have a problem with loneliness. We have a problem with depression within construction, and belonging's such a good medicine for that. It's such a good antidote for that. Do you feel that where you're at now is really somewhere where you could stay and have a complete career, and that culture is a culture that is worth sharing with everyone else?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, I look around like the U.S. Engineering office, and everyone has been there forever. And I think that's so weird and also like unique, but it's really good too because it speaks to the culture of what we have.
Sure.
People don't want to leave. Like something that's important to me is being able to work from home. And so I do get like a work from home day, and that's super great because I like to turn off all of my meetings for that day. And it's like, finally, no one's gonna come up to me at my desk and ask me to help them with something. I can just focus on my actual tasks to do, and then I can get them done.
Which is interesting, because you and I met yesterday, and you're a social person, obviously, because we met through somebody else, and we just started talking. We had some really good conversation. So I feel like you're obviously good at talking to people and you're open, but like you said, sometimes you're just getting bombarded and you just have all the things you need to complete in your head. So getting that work from home day really just probably helps you out from a mental standpoint, knowing that you're completing everything, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe there's a negative connotation around it from the older generation, but for me, it's
so now
like,
she's calling us old. Now
We're good. Now we're good.
it is so
Okay,
important
yeah,
to me.
yeah.
So it's just like one, a small thing where at the end of the pandemic, it was like, okay, everyone's gonna go back into office. And I kind of raised my hand and was like, are we sure that's the best option for everyone? Because I really appreciate, having the flexibility to stay home. And these are the reasons why, and this is why I think it's more productive. And they appreciated my insight, and now I still do get my one work from home day, which is awesome.
It's awesome, and you hit on this, that Christina that we presented with Henkai has something called So Built, and it's all about purpose and belonging and curiosity and play being part of your job. And I think you just kind of described that U.S. Engineering has built this environment, right? They've built a place that is fun.
Yeah.
Because they're giving you problems, and leadership is sharing with you and allowing you to have the curiosity to go look at things. And people are like, hey, I think Hanna can do this. So I think they've actually, and then, they're letting you do certain things you need to do, like work from home, which is great because that actually is your time to get through things and play with things and be on your own in your own space and solve real problems. So it's kind of cool that it hits on everything we talk about, is because that actually, what that does, Hannah, is prevents burnout.
Yeah.
And because I'm interested, because now you've been here twice now, 3 times, so into the MEP world, and you have some colleagues. I'm wondering if you're seeing the differences maybe from the environment you work in and maybe where some of these other folks are working.
Yeah, I do see a difference. I very early on, I think it was like within my first year or year and a half or so, someone in our, I think, pre-construction department came up to me and he said, a little bit of advice, the best thing you can learn to do for yourself is to say no. And I was like, that is really good advice, and I will be saying no. So I feel like I've set really good boundaries for myself on, if I come home at 5 o'clock, like within reason, I'm done for the day. And so the burnout aspect of, maybe people working on different projects or whatever, they have to understand too, like they have the power and ability to say no to help prevent them from being burnt out.
Well, I'm going to ask a difficult question, because in our industry, it's a ever-moving industry. Sometimes construction doesn't stop at 5 o'clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the way we are is that sometimes we're scared to say no because of the impact it can have on the outlook people have of us. I applaud you for having that ability to set those boundaries, to say no. Or like, hey, I know at 5 o'clock I'm done for the day because work-life balance is important. I know things still need to be done that are urgent, but I'm confident in myself that I can get them done on my next workday. Like from a person that's younger in this industry, like walk me through your mindset on that, because people like that are in my age group, we don't have that. Most of us don't. I know I don't. It's hard for me to shut that off. So walk me through what that looks like from you to not be afraid to say no at 5 o'clock or to set those boundaries.
To be clear, I am always very afraid.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the okay. Just so we're okay, good. I was like, is she not real? Like, what's going on here?
No, I am always afraid
Okay,
and
great.
asking. But you have to think too to yourself, I'm gonna say no, and if they say, no, I still need you to do this, well then that's the worst thing that can happen, right? Either they respect you or they respect you either way, but they're gonna say, I still need you to do this by whatever, 8 p.m. tonight. And it's like, okay, well, sure. I think the difference is you don't make a habit of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you're saying no. They're going to actually respect you more for that.
Sure.
Because you're setting a clear boundary of or you're saying, listen, yes, I can do that, but no, I can't because I have these things. So which one is it?
And that is my favorite follow-up question to ask is, how critical is this?
Yeah.
When do you need this by?
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's, I need to buy it tomorrow, okay, are we gonna meet first thing in the morning over it? Or is it, I need it by tomorrow because I just think I need it by tomorrow? Yeah.
I like that you're asking those clarity questions and making people get specific. It's funny because John and I come from the agile world and the software side of things and doing things in these agile frameworks. And I'll never forget, I had a early person that thought agile meant they could throw anything on the board at any time. And my first Scrum Master, when it happened, was like, okay, well, what comes off? And she was like, well, nothing.
Yeah.
I put something, and we were like, no, that's not how this works. And I'm like, oh, this is what transparency looks like to know, right?
Well, and I'm glad to see it. And me being a 12-year pipe fitter, a union pipe fitter, we go to work from 7 a.m. to 3:30, and at 3:30 there's a hard stop, and the job's not done that day, but you put your tools away, you pack up, and then God willing, you go home safely with everybody else, and you do it all over again. And there's critical things that need to be done, but you know what? We'll take care of it tomorrow. And when I transitioned into the tech world and corporate side of things, I guess, some of those things went away. So I'm glad to see that people are.
You can't have healthy labor without what you're doing.
Well,
like healthy labor says, I need to go home. This happens all the time, we need to hire more people. And by the way, my question was a little loaded to you when I asked, because you are the 4th person I've talked to from US Engineering who has said the same thing about the culture. It's actually a little. I actually am kind of like, I should go check this out and see what they're actually doing. But when you're pushing back, and I think that's right. Do you feel, I know a lot of people right now are saying, hey, we don't want to come into the office at all. Do you get a lot of energy and a lot of, is going to the office still worth it to you?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, for sure. Well, so it's interesting because the team that I work on and the teams that I always have worked on have always been based out of our other office in Denver. So I live and work in Kansas City, but everyone I work with is in Denver. So it's like, well, why do I need to go into the office if I can just get on a Teams call with the people that are important to my job? But the value of going in is I get to form these relationships with all the different departments, and I get to catch up and hear how Jack is doing and how his wife is doing and what's going on with his house, or how did Wes's kids do at their soccer tournament. So it's like cool to go in and be a part of that, because then if they have a problem or I need something from then it's a lot easier to go and ask.
Yeah.
And like you talked earlier about feeling appreciated and like a part of a team, I think by you forging those relationships, it kind of builds that family unit where you do feel appreciated, right? And it goes, to me, it just follows that simple step from, feeling appreciated, work-life balance, which if you don't have those things, it leads to burnout, which ultimately leads to vulnerability.
Yeah.
And when you're vulnerable, that's when, you start looking elsewhere, right? And to prevent that, you just follow those steps, which is really cool.
I think it's interesting that like, I'm gonna take us back to data for just a second.
I know you're itching.
I
He's
was dying.
He wanted to,
No.
you guys want to geek out on data, which is great. I was like, let me just ask some normal questions.
No,
and
you
then
need to ask normal
you guys
questions.
can
I was
just-
immediately like, no, you're right. I'm going straight for nerd.
I can't help it. He's gone nerd.
Nerd, like full nerd.
Full.
And I think she likes, like, she's like, yeah, let's nerd out.
Well,
Yeah.
no, my thought was this. You're into data, so you understand that as we make changes, we have big impacts. Do you actually think, because I've been trying to figure out the same problem, Mikey, that you were talking about. We have burnout, we have new people coming in. How do we change the culture between, because there's a level at which I don't think I'm going to change my personal culture anymore. I've hit the point where I don't think I'm going to do that, but you're setting the culture for these businesses. Do you think data is going to help you prove your point?
Yes, and I
Already
think
started?
so it's funny that you say that, because me and another person, Lauren Wilson, on our strategy team, were just talking about like how can we actually begin tracking like the changes that we're going to make, because it is important, because these cultural impacts are super awesome and they do affect the bottom line. How though, we need to decide the metrics to make that case.
When Josh Bowden first went to Lector, he's like, absenteeism. John, do you know about absenteeism? And I'm like, to tech, I'm like, no, Josh, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, look at these numbers. And he was showing me tremendous numbers. It's like, you want to make everything work, you want to make more things installed, let's figure out how to not have absenteeism. So there are those big questions that sort of go around with, do you have a culture that's going to be resilient enough in the next few generations? But Mike, you said you were talking a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion in your last conversation. And I think that weighs into how resilient are these companies going to be. So can you kind of give us some insight, Mike, or get us on that track?
Hey, it was a really impressive conversation, and me coming from the trades and the construction side, and in this next, 10 minutes or so may be difficult for us to talk about, and it's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about. But I feel it's something that needs to be continued to be talked about. And even yesterday, I made a point to you and I said, in order to fix it, we should not talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it, we treat everybody normal and everybody the same, then there's no problem. But that's always obviously not the answer. Construction, as we know, let's just set the standard, or just set the table, 99% male dominated. Can we agree? I mean, like, let's look at this side of the table.
Let's look at.
Let's just look at the statistic, right?
It does not surprise us or look that
Sure.
we're three white guys, older white guys.
We're three older
we
white
are
guys.
the industry kind of that's what it is.
And as somebody that was in construction in the field who tried to implement technology, I was always told, this is the way it's always been done. We don't need your tech. Slam the door. Now, fortunately, things are moving and people are welcoming technology. They're seeing the benefit. and they're changing their mind on it, right? So let's switch that over to DEI, which is something you told me about, and I didn't know what that meant yesterday. I'm showing full humility. I said, I don't know, what does DEI mean? Like, and she said diversity, equality, and inclusion. And I said, okay, this is, I'm sorry I didn't understand the acronym, but walk me through that. So why, and you enlightened me, and I thought about it all night, it was great. Why is this important to you? Why does this matter to you? What fuels you behind it?
Yeah, I love having a conversation around DEI. I think
Sure.
it's so important. It goes back to the sense of belonging. Really is like part of the foundation. I think the other foundational piece of it is just having basic human respect for the people around you. I think those are the two key factors in it. And U.S. Engineering has done a really good job in the last 2 years. We formed a DEI-B for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Council. So we've analyzed, we've brought in a number of consultants to look at us as a employee. Like, let me start over.
Sure, of course.
We've brought in a number of consultants to look at what our employee history has been, like the typical things that you can think of when you think about employee data is your race, gender, age, kind of those things, and then also where we're recruiting from. Like I mentioned, typically we hire a lot of K-State grads from the Kansas City office. There are also a lot of other really good schools in the KC Metro that we could be targeting to hire that have great talent too. And so it's about really belonging. How can we create a culture of psychological safety for those around us, where people are being respectful of one another, and understanding that all of our unique differences really add to the equation instead of take things away.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the things for me over time, and I never, again, because I'm I do understand the DEI. I've been around for a while, but so I was around before it existed. But I always had this and worked with people that it was like, no, we want different ideas, right? If we all, I say this all the time on stage, like, if everybody thinks like me that I work with, then why are we meeting? Like, I'll just do what I wanted to do.
I mean, that's a perfect way to say it.
And it'll probably be wrong, let's be honest, right? Because it's like, well, you get tunnel vision. Like, if we don't challenge one another and you don't challenge one another. But then what I didn't realize too, especially female in the industry, young, the belonging, even if we have a great relationship and I work there and we have a great, I don't look like you, right? You do need to be surrounded by other youth, other people. They don't have to be like you, but they have to kind of be in the same career trajectory for you, et cetera. So it's a key component. I'm wondering, did they get a group of young folks at the same time? Or is it just, how did that work for you?
No, this is a good question. It's a committee of, I think, like 13 to 15 people, and it's, right, typically white man is who's in the industry, but our council is comprised of a number of different people in all levels of the organization. So I'm part of it. I'm a woman, of course, so I'd be part of it. We also have field members that are a part of it, and then we have different project managers, and then VPs of operations, and then our CEO and our CPO are also a part of it. So a big spread of people. Also, we didn't want to get only minorities from the organization in it, because then we're just preaching to the choir, right? Like, that kind of feels a little bit wrong. We're all saying we have these grievances, and everyone is just saying, well, yeah, we do. And then what do we do about it?
And that's what I asked last night. I said, do you have any old white men in there too? Because you need them to be, and they're also, right?
Yes, and we absolutely do have our beloved old white men. And they're so great too.
Sure.
We're beloved.
Right.
I don't think we're in that group, by the way.
Right.
Just hoping.
Understanding what builds belonging is different from culture to culture. So I love the fact that you have all the cultures represented. I'm really interested in, obviously, again, I had heard a lot about U.S. engineering in regards to culture, like primarily actually. And I'm wondering, like, what are some of the really core values that have come out of those meetings, these things that we can say across cultures? We all agree, this is what respect looks like. This is what belonging looks like. Are there anything that came out that really struck you as, this is core to what it is to have an inclusive workplace?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the respect thing. I mean, something that I always try to shut down is the inappropriate comments that are said about whoever.
Yep.
You know, if you're out in the field or even in the office, and it's like, you know, maybe that should have been an inside thought, or let's think about that differently.
That was a respectful way to
I
say
like
that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start using that. That should have been an inside thought, yeah.
Yeah.
But you understand though that on a job site, there's going to be that banter that is just natural camaraderie where, you know, it's not always like PG material, right? There's gonna be swearing, there's gonna, you know, so you understand and I'm sure you're probably even okay with some of that, right?
Yeah, I understand for sure. It just needs to be you know,
It's respectful.
respectful. It's not dehumanizing someone.
There you go,
Or
yeah.
coming at them for a personal attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I guess to really quickly say is something that is important too is I really dislike when someone will self-censor themselves and acknowledge it out loud when I'm in the room. So
Oh, that's a good point.
I'm not a child. I'm also I'm your coworker, so you can say whatever you would say normally because I'm an equal with you.
Sure.
Here.
So let me ask for somebody listening that this is sparking them and they're interested in this and they don't have this where they work. What's step one? How do you even start this? Like, how do you even get this traction off the ground to get something like this moving? And I'm sure they can connect with you at LinkedIn and ask you, and I'm sure you'd be willing to you know, give them some pointers, but give them here. Like, how do you start? What's step one?
Step one for your organization, I think this was built out of a need for like ERGs is what they're called, employee resource groups, and that's going to be one of our initiatives out of this DEI committee. But that's kind of where this started. Is people like women in our company were saying, "Hey, we all kind of want to be together and let's be able to support each other in this, and maybe have some allies, right? Some other people in the organization that can also lift us up. And what does that look like?" So that was an ERG group for us.
It's interesting. We see that at a couple of, I think it was Procore that does it as well. Has a number of different ERG groups, because if you really start to look as a company grows, there's a lot of, you know, we consistently think of DEI in the form of gender, right, or race. But if you really like circle it out, there's parents, right? So there's people with kids, there's divorced, there's, you know, all sorts of different groups that can come together, and they need those allies. They need that space for that so that they can do some of the, oh, this is happening, and then also go out into the company. And I'm the guy, I try to pick up on the little things. You said CPO, and I love to hear that a construction company has a chief people officer, because so much we think of like, oh, HR, that's our head.
Yeah.
HR, to me, HR is a compliance, and it has a place, and it's important, right? And it handles benefits, and it handles lots of things that we really need, but a chief people officer is about focusing on belonging, focusing on culture, focusing on creating that. So I'm interested. I'm going to go to data. So I'm going to go to data.
Yeah.
So I have this interesting, and maybe you guys aren't doing it yet, or maybe I can plant a seed to think about it. But I think mapping out the data of the life cycle of an employee, not just the things that they, you know, have and have gone through, but the roles, the advancement, the areas. I think mapping that out and then being able to use that data to recruit with.
Yeah.
Like, look at your career story already 4 years in that's got to be intriguing to someone who wants to make a difference. So
It is cool. And also, I know maybe the Gen Z and millennials, not everyone wants to be a manager. A lot of people are really happy with being individual contributors. And it is cool, you know, now in this day and age, you can move laterally in a company. And that's totally fine. So you can see, you know, if I'm kind of getting a little bored with what I'm doing now, maybe I have a different role in a different area, and it's a lateral move, and I'm still working for the same great organization that I really enjoy the culture with, and, you know, the people I work with and stuff, but now I get to do something different in my day-to-day, which is great too.
That builds resilient
That's
businesses.
awesome.
It
Totally builds resilient
I love it.
businesses.
I was going to say two things about that is in what you guys are doing from the approach on it is building a resilient, diversified,
Diverse, yeah.
but also, I mean, strategic company, right? That is having somebody go across and look, we can talk about it here, and because we can be frank, but like we have built a building block in almost every one of our trades that's represented here that you do this, you do this, you do this, right? And then you're a manager, you're a super or whatever. And it's like, let's be honest, not everybody should be managing people.
Exactly.
Like,
and did you stop and ask them, did they
even
want to?
this?
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it just feels like the next step, but it doesn't always have to be.
And how many have I mean, I've had hallway conversations with them here. It's like, well, I wasn't going to get any more money. I had to do this and take it on, and I hate it. And I'm like, wait, so you went from loving what you do to hating it because of managing people. Now, two things. One, well, we're going to have to lean into a lot of those folks, and teach them too, because we don't teach leadership. We don't teach somebody. Like, we'll teach them along the way. I mean, we built this whole culture, from being a pipe fitter, they didn't just hand you all the tools and the thing
Apprenticeship, you
and
go
go out there and
apprenticeship.
build.
Yeah.
You went through an apprenticeship, and we taught you skills, and we put check boxes in, and we put area. Manager, we're like,
Well, that's what
just
they-
go ahead and do that.
Here you go.
Here you go.
In the
So-
trades, what do you do to your best welder? You make him or her a foreman. And
Yeah.
it's like, this is the best welder. They love welding. It's their passion.
Yes.
So you promote them, and maybe they didn't want to be, promoted,
But I also give you some credit for looking over instead of up. It is like I hear a lot of people actually leave their company because they're like, well, there's no up to go to. And there's lots of overs. There's totally lots of overs. So, but I wonder if that's a Hanna thing versus a generational thing.
Well,
I don't know, yeah.
And I was going to ask you a question earlier of like some of the things that help you make some critical decisions in your job. And I wonder with some of those lateral moves, if it's giving you the insight from multi-department, lenses to say like, hey, I can attack this problem this way because I used to work in this department and I see it through their lens. So, is that true? I mean, do you see some of that?
I think for sure that is true. I feel very much like a jack of all trades in my role. Like I know a very good amount of all of the things that go on, and I know just enough information in each of those different workflows where it's like, okay, this is how it's going to improve this group, and this is what it's going to look like.
So like in some of the younger generations where a lot of them just care about moving up. All they want is a title and they're chasing that. I think the answer is yes, but would you recommend to somebody that's younger and getting in, hey, maybe start looking laterally first before you start looking up the ladder? Like explore all the ladders before you find the one you want to climb.
I think that would be, yes, I would definitely give that advice. Because too, it's, you figure out, what you're really good at and what you're passionate about. And I was not really good in VC, and I wasn't passionate about it. And I wasn't passionate about schedules and project controls. It was my least favorite thing to do. I hated scheduling. And everyone at my job knows that, and they stopped asking me to schedule, even though that was my job, was to schedule. And so now, here I am doing problem solving inside of strategy instead, because that's what I'm more passionate about and better at doing.
Yeah.
And you'll be much more productive doing something you're
Yeah.
happier with.
Yeah.
Well, and as you grow and when you finally figure out, because I think you will figure out somewhere where you're going to take on the leadership role, you're kind of talking about it before. And I keep doing this because I want to get it right for myself, but you have perspective and perception. So you have a perspective, but going to those different groups gives you an understanding of their perspectives. So when you come together to make a decision with all that data, it's also probably why you're really good with the recommendations, because you have your own perspective, but you have a perception of how it's impacting everyone, how this data is being gathered and worked through, and what a change to any one of it would do to any one of those pieces. And with some more experience over time as you play around with the data too, that's going to make you a very powerful decision maker and leader, because you know how to perceive all that. I mean, from my perspective, that's where the industry gets it wrong, right? Like, because we fight with one another and we think we're a mechanical or we're an electrical, and we forget. And that's why like the MEP is so good, because you're getting everybody's perspective. So we're getting close. So I want to get sort of your take on the 2024 kickoff MEP. You know, this is kickoff to conference season for all of us, and then maybe some advice, because we do get younger listeners along the way on, you know, what they can do and think about, and why this might be a good place for them to jump in.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you also for that was so nice, the compliments in there. That was awesome. But my take on it, it's so exciting and awesome, really, it is. I know I talked about APIs in my session. I know APIs were talked about a lot in other sessions. And just like the chatter around in the hallways, you know, 5 years ago, no one knew what an API was.
Yeah.
And now people are like really excited about it, and that's really cool. So Take is like super awesome, definitely worth the time and investment to come to these conferences and to talk with, you know, people like us. It's just so fun. And then a bit of advice that is really important, I think, for myself to hear, you know, a couple years ago too, is it's totally okay to fail.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's okay to fail, and that's when how you react to your failures is a better indicator of what the failure was for you.
Sure.
So,
My last question for you is, and thanks so much for being here. DEIB aside, I know that's something you're very passionate about. What's the one thing in construction that needs to be fixed? What's the one thing that you're like, that's just bugging you? Like, we got a major problem here and nobody's seeing it. Like, is there anything that sticks out that like is really a hot button for you right now? And if not, that's okay, you know.
yeah, I don't know if there's anything that really sticks out to me specifically. I know we touched on a lot of good topics,
Yeah.
Like having your data integrations and having faster workflows and stuff too, but also hiring younger talent and supporting them and being able to move laterally within your organization too is cool.
Well, it sounds like you're tackling all of those, you know. So just 4 years in, and she's already, you know, doing a great job. So just keep that up.
I have one last question too. So I actually didn't learn about DEI until I don't know, like 2 years ago it came up, and I didn't get a lot of time to think about it. Then I was on talking to Henry Nutt with you.
Yep.
And Henry was so inspired me by the time I left with all the stories about how strong this could be for the industry and how cool the idea was and everything else, that literally when we ended the podcast, I went and read about it for like 2 days. Did you have anybody in the construction arena that inspired you in those areas, or that you look up to in those areas?
There is a woman, she doesn't work for US Engineering, she works for Henderson, and
Yeah.
she's on their people team also, Jen Walker.
Jim Walker?
And she is so awesome. I don't know if she does speaking events or what, but I've been connected with her in Kansas City, and she's phenomenal. I think she came from outside of construction. Henderson is an engineering design firm, but she is my person I lean on in Kansas City when I'm like, hey, this is something that we have going on. Let's talk about it. So.
Right on.
Cool. That's awesome. I mean, you need mentors. You need those people you can turn to.
Mhm.
And it's even nice if it's outside of your company. You can, you know, say, hey, this is, you know, sort of some of the internal laundry without stepping on any toes, and let's figure out how we clean it up. It's a great way to do it, and it's awesome to see. I mean, 4 years in and you're on the main stage already here at MEP.
Stage twice,
Yeah.
or no? Yeah.
You know, so
See what
really
next
excited. You know, everybody can connect with you on LinkedIn, I imagine, and catch up and see what you're up to.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I would recommend you guys reach out. Thank you for sitting down with us today for the episode. So, and enjoy the evening. There's no more tonight other than we get to go watch a little game show.
Little reception.
A little reception.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, always a
Are you in the game
highlight.
show tonight? Are you
No,
playing?
I'm not in it,
Okay.
but I'll be having drinks after.
Yeah, we're gonna go over to somewhere on the property and see some Disney stuff and have a few restaurants to ourselves, and it should be a lot of fun. So, Hannah, thank you so much for sitting down, and it is her first rodeo, but I'm gonna guess it's not your last. So,
Yeah.
thanks for sitting down with us.
Thanks.
Thank you.